Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the dining car. My name is Omen Cross, and I'd like you to pull up a chair and sit down and enjoy today's serving of crossing and waffles on our ride to Desperation Station. Now, before we get started, I'd like to introduce the chef for this meal, without whom it wouldn't exist. Your Spiss and mine, Emma Cross, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
So, today's meal, it's not going to be my favorite topic. Not because it's a bad one or one I shouldn't talk about, just because it's the kind of thing that's going to affect a lot of people. I mean, it already does, but after the things that we've been going through, I'd say worldwide, this is a process that more people are going to end up involved in than ever before. And so I figured, since a lot of people may never have experienced this process, or may have only done it one time some years ago, it was pretty easy, whatever, figured people might want a refresher. Figured people might want some information and some viewpoints from people that have actually done it, not just what they'll tell you. So I figured this is a good topic for today. We're going to start with the start, because that's where you start. And so where we're going to start in what it means to reach Desperation Station is what that means inside. It's not a place you go to. It's what happens when, I don't know, let's use the recent example. A viral outbreak causes you to not be able to make as much money as you're used to making for your family, and thereby don't have enough money to cover your normal bills plus the food that your children need to eat. Or maybe it's worse than that. Maybe this situation forced you out into the street. Maybe you need some aid, a way to try and get you out of the street.
Maybe. Who knows?
So these are things that not everybody knows how to do, or how to do right, or how to even prepare.
Well, and it's something nobody really wants to do.
Well, no, nobody wants to sit around and beg. Nobody wants to say,
begging.
help me, please help me.
It's not begging. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. It's just...
That's just the way it's looked at. Nobody wants to be viewed that way. Nobody wants to be seen as that person. But that's part of what's wrong with it. It's just one of many things, though.
Many societal pressures.
We need to revert back to the start, where we start. How do you start this process? There's a couple of ways. You go into one of your local offices that deals in these things, or you can get online for the places that have online connections to these services. The online application or your first visit. Either way, that's not the end. You're not getting aid that day. That's going to start a process. My suggestion, especially right now, is go ahead and do the application online with your local agency. Because with backlog, with how many people are going to need help after this, and with how many problems this is going to cause for the people that actually do these jobs, it's going to take a long time.
And most government buildings are shut down anyway, so
expect a wait time.
But call your office first. You just go online and look up your local aid office, and they should be able to have a number listed.
So anyway, you get through either the online application, or you go in and basically do the same online application, but with somebody else that knows the job sitting there telling you what they need from you at each point. This is going to lead you through stage 1. Stage 2 of this is when you finally get a call or a notification or an email or whatever that an appointment has been set up, whether it's an appointment at an office or on the phone. And this appointment is going to be proof and validation of who you are, why you need aid, blah, blah, blah. They are going to ask you for a lot of information. They're going to ask you for proof of that information. So stuff like Social Security cards, certified birth certificates, these are the kind of things these people tend to ask for.
Just basic stuff.
On top of that, they're going to ask for, in the case of the aid most people go for, stuff like food stamps and unemployment, they're going to ask for physical proof of your recent work history and how much money you've made. This was actually a reason why she didn't make much when she applied for aid once.
Yeah, I only made like $15 a month, which isn't anything. It's barely enough to buy food for one meal.
So to say that's a month worth of food stamps is kind of ridiculous to somebody that's living in a car. However, at the time, just prior to her application, which was actually just after she was in a seasonal situation where the job she had been working no longer had work because it was buried in snow, she was only making $15 in food stamps for support because she had made money over the last 6 months, regardless of whether she was making money in that moment. So this is the first major barrier you will run into as you do this.
Or flaw, however you want to look
well,
at
I
it.
mean, saying the system's flawed is like saying the sky's blue. We already know that.
True.
So once we go past this barrier and you present all the required paperwork, you get to stage 2, which with things like food stamps gets you to about the point where you might see some money. You might actually get your first payment soon after that on whatever your government's decided your specific day is. Most of them do it alphabetically or something like that. And so everybody gets paid on different days because of where your name is. So with stuff like food stamps, this can be as simple as the process begins. But it's not anywhere close to where it ends. Because even with the simplest of things like food stamps, you have to remember that they occasionally ask you for more paperwork. They occasionally, every 6 months, you have to renew. If you do not make contact with them when they want you to, they will discontinue your food stamps.
Pretty standard stuff, really.
Most of it's pretty standard. But apparently, they're saying Trump's trying to enact how now they can, drug test you and all these other things. Basically, they're saying people are giving the government permission to decide what you can do in your free time and still be aided by the nation that you live in.
Well, that's wrong. I mean, it shouldn't matter what you do on your free time. It's extra help. I mean, I don't know. That just opens a whole nother can of worms and a whole slew of ethics.
Yeah. So, I mean, with food stamps, you find yourself in an easy spot. It's usually relatively simple to do. But once you get anything more than that, or you try to look into getting anything more than that, it becomes way harder. So we'll take one step above that and work into the unemployment that I'm sure most people out there who have been forced to stay home because of this virus and have lost out on pay that they were supposed to get for however long probably need to know about this process. You start out generally the same. You turn in your paperwork, you have your first meeting. But it takes longer than that because they want to go through your work history and discern how much out of that they feel the need to want to pay you and for what period of time they want to pay you and all this. And these are all things they're going to go through and basically tell you whether you like it or not. A lot of people get denied unemployment for one reason or another. I'd say provide as much proof of your work history and how much money you've been making along with how much your bills are as you can, because that may be the only way to get the person that you're doing that paperwork with to see what it is you actually need help with and get them to help you properly.
That's good advice.
So that's the step above unemployment. Now we're going to go a step just beyond that and talk about what it's like to try and do this. Now, we all know that there's a stigma that surrounds people that ask for aid of any kind. Like they're all lazy and they're all useless and they're all worthless. Maybe this incident, having put so many more people into a desperate position, will have finally convinced people to not look at everybody else so badly just because they asked for aid.
Hopefully. I mean, one step at a time, right?
Because I'll tell you the truth. I've been into an aid office. I've been into several aid offices over the course of my life. But it always looks generally the same. You see a lot of people, and they've all been beaten down by life in one form or another. And they're all just trying to find a way to get a little bit of help to get through whatever desperate position they're in at the moment.
Well, yeah, because we all fall on hard times. It's just the facts of life.
And so I understand this position. I've been there myself. People I care about have been there themselves. And I've seen so many people go through this at so many different offices and in so many people's lives. So you have to understand both that there's an attitude amongst most of the people asking for help because they're in a very desperate position. That's why we're all on the way to Desperation Station together, because we're talking about what it means. And when you're in this position, when your children aren't eating, when you're not eating, when you don't have money to pay your bills, when you don't have money to live with, you realize that some of the things you spent so much time thinking about aren't as important anymore. Unfortunately, then when you start applying for the aid you need to get you through, you realize that there are so many steps in the process and so much time that some of it takes.
And so much rigmarole.
Along with the stigma from the outside that now you're a horrible person because you couldn't do it yourself. And now this horrible person is asking for aid, and nobody wants to feel like that. That you find yourself constantly in battle with yourself over whether or not you should even be there. Whether or not you should even ask for help. You know, the fact that human beings, no matter what color, sex, creed, nationality, no matter what, the fact that people have to sit there and decide whether or not they feel like they deserve to live over whether or not they can get food stamps is ridiculous and should not be at all.
No, it shouldn't.
We should not put profit before people in any way, let alone that one. But you see it on everybody's faces in there when you go in. They're all so sad. Not just because of what's going on in their individual lives, but because they know they're being treated like straight up criminals because they need help.
And no one should be made to feel like that. Let's be clear.
Yeah, nobody. I don't care who you are. I won't say I don't care who you are, because there's a few. And we talked about that a little bit earlier. We're going to talk about it now. There's some people out there that know how the system works because they either did it themselves, or they know somebody, or they're a major in something, or because they're just an asshole who decided to look into this and know it to that level. And they use this knowledge to get into these systems simply to make money to do nothing. These are the same people that move in on your couch and never leave. But yet, everyone that goes and looks for aid knows that they're being looked at as that person. And most of us hate the thought of being looked at as that person. So, to see it on other people's faces, to walk into an office of people waiting on meetings or waiting to renew or whatever, and they all look like they wish they could do this without feeling so bad inside about it. They wish they could get the help they needed without being treated like a criminal.
But those are all society's pressures that are placed on them. I mean,
yes, but we're talking about as many layers of this process as we are talking about, so that people understand not just one thing that you have to do, but what it entails.
You're just gonna have to overcome the stigma. Everybody's there, and
everybody needs help sometimes. That's the thing. I've had people, I'm homeless in a car, and I have people walk up to me and say, can I get a cigarette? And I don't even have money to give out cigarettes, let alone have them for myself. And yet, if I can manage it, I still do. Why? I give them the same answer every time. No matter how they want to thank me or whatever, I always say the same thing to them. Everybody needs help sometimes. No man, no woman, no person on earth is an island unto themselves.
Yep, we're all in this together.
Because you don't make all the meals. You don't produce all the power. You don't make the world run alone. And so we can't keep treating it.
Teamwork to make the dream work.
Exactly. And so we can't keep treating it like we all don't need help sometimes. For that reason, if we all need help sometimes, we ought to respect that everybody else needs some help sometimes. Now, the exception to that rule is the abusers. The ones that get into the system just to make the free money. I've seen it myself. I went in to get food stamps in the office. And after I filled out my paperwork and everything and walked out, as I was walking out of the food stamp office in their own parking lot, a man walked up to me and asked me if I would trade him money or weed for his food stamps. Now this right here, this is the shit that needs to stop.
This is what makes us look bad.
This is why nobody can get aid when they need it. Is because we got people in the system who just want to abuse. These are the same people that get food stamps and then buy lobster for their dog. Give it to the dog. I don't need it. Well, then why are you taking it from people that do? These people should be fined and punished for abusing the system so everybody else can get the help they need. And that's how I feel about the abusers. If you're one of those people and you're listening to this and you're out there collecting food stamps when you make plenty of money to feed yourself and pay your bills, fuck you. I'm homeless. I can't get help because of you. I hope you're proud. So that's what I got to say about the abusers. Now we're going to talk about the setup of the system.
Ooh, don't even.
Because we all know that we could do better than this. We talk about it all the time. Oh, we could do so much better. We could do better. Then why don't we? Why don't we force anybody else to? Why is it that every system's just allowed to be broken and get away with it? Why is it jobs can fire people for following the law, get away with it, and systems can stay broken? We all know it. Nobody does anything, and it gets away with it. Why? There's no reason. There's no basis in reality why we as people can't say, okay, this is dumb, we need to fix it. The people at the top know they could fix it.
Well, there are people out there who know this is dumb and want it fixed.
Yeah, but most of the people that want it fixed aren't involved in it. And it's because we're not allowed to be. I'm not a politician. It's not supposed to be my job to fix the world's problems. I just see that things are broken and wish somebody would do something about it.
I agree.
We keep waiting for a politician to make real change. It doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen.
There's some out there. We just gotta, I don't know, vote for them. But
aren't we down to like 2 in the Democratic race now? So it's now Trump versus either Bernie or Biden. Isn't that what it is? Basically. When we all get out of lockdown and the rallies can start again and the speeches can start again and the hype can start again, isn't that what it's going to be?
Pretty much. I mean, but you never know. We still got some time to go.
What, a mystery candidate going to come out of the bottom and just overtake all 3 of them? I don't think so. Not now.
One can hope.
Huh.
One can vote meteor.
Hope in one hand, shit in the other, and see which one fills up first.
We're all doomed.
So, that's the next point of contestation in this particular discussion, is that we all know that we could do better than this. We all know we could vote for people who do better than this, but it's not happening. For whatever reason, It's not happening. The people that place votes only vote on what's popular. They don't pay attention to all the bills the politicians put in, what they mean.
Well, those are complicated. It's full of political jargon.
Everything's full of political jargon. Apparently, every show you watch on TV now that's worth a damn is full of political jargon.
Well, we're talking about political bullshit right now.
I know, and I wish life was in a position where this wasn't most of what I ended up talking about. But this is something we ourselves have to do because of this virus and of this situation. So I figured everybody else might be interested to hear what it's like to have to deal with this process and the people and the stigmas surrounding all this. But there's still a section of this that hasn't been talked about.
What's that?
Well, that's a section that you don't have as much input on, but you've watched a lot with me. It's applying for things like disability or especially military benefits.
I've applied for disability plenty of times.
You've applied it at what, the state level?
No, there's only one form of disability, and it's federal.
So, explain what you went through.
A long bullshit process. I was denied multiple times. The most recent time, they denied me because they said the car was worth too much. Even though I met all of the criteria to obtain disability, they still denied me.
So that's her personal experience with disability. I'll tell you mine. Militarily, in terms of VA disability, I applied. I was denied due to lack of evidence. Based on my situation, I can't just magically produce all this evidence they want out of the air of what I know for fact has happened in my life and the things I know for fact are wrong with me. Not when they send you to doctors that specifically ask you questions about nothing more than them trying to get away with telling you no.
Oh, the same thing happened to me.
They send you to a doctor that they pay for, and they say, evaluate this person for disability and make sure you do your best to get them denied. You think these doctors aren't paid for these visits? So that means they're being paid by the government? And if they're being paid by the government, that means they work for the government, not for you. And so when you go in there to tell them what's wrong with you and be honest with them, they're going to find ways to distort what you said to make that not applicable. It's happened to me more than once.
No, these are just anecdotes. These are what happened to us.
Yep.
I've
Not everybody goes through this exact process, but it is something that happens to probably tens of thousands of people constantly. We're not talking about in 1 year. We're talking about something that's been going on for a long time. Aid has changed over the years, but it's always been around. And so, in one fashion or another, most people listening to this have probably dealt with one form or another of this.
Some form of bullshit discrimination and
because
lies and
with the VA thing, with applying for military disability, you have to provide concrete military proof of your conditions, and then outside of that, they'll only take VA data, and then outside of that, if they contest you in any way, then you have to provide even more evidence, and it has to be from specific sources, and there's just so much going on with it that it's too much to deal with, and you'll never see aid unless you're in a stable position now. If you're ex-military and you need some help and you know there's things wrong with you and you know the Army caused it, then you're going to need help. And there's organizations out there, I don't know all of them, every state, every organization, but there's organizations out there, especially in the VA, that'll help you fill out the disability paperwork in the way that they'll actually respond to with anything more than a denial. It may take months, years. You may go through the process 50 times.
just keep trying.
But don't give up on it. Me personally, I haven't had the means, because it's not that I wouldn't like to apply again or have more information than before. It's just that living in a car with no money, no way to get anywhere, I don't really have the time nor the resources to schedule a bunch of appointments and go all over the place. So unfortunately for me, I find myself in that position now where I couldn't obtain aid that way, even if they would give it to me. But I've already been given the kind of no proof denial that basically says I won't even see a 10% military disability my entire life. And ask anybody who's out of the Army collecting disability, when you say you've been denied to the point where you can't even collect 10%, they'll look at you like you're crazy. But this was my experience. So when you try to apply for any kind of disability, understand they are going to fight you as hard as possible. This is not going to be an easy process. It's not going to be one that's done overnight, and you're going to have to stand up for the truth, regardless of what they try to tell you. So now we've covered food stamps and unemployment and disability and the VA and the programs for those who have served, at least in part. There's bigger discussions on every single one of these topics. But this isn't meant for you to know every detail. This is meant for you to understand that something's there and go figure it out yourself.
Yeah, your best bet may be to talk to a lawyer.
If their office is open right now.
Good point. I forgot about that.
Remember, we're all in a virus crisis. So
I forget.
do some research. Look some stuff up. Figure it out. If you're going to have to go through this process, understand what the process is going to be before you start it. Otherwise, you're going to fail.
We may have to be going through this process somehow.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how. I'm going to try to apply for disability again based on the same thing I applied for last time, that they said there wasn't enough support for it. I'm pretty sure that the evidence of me having to lose my job and then have the police call on me over a non-violent issue that almost became a violent issue because I chose not to be violent, I'm pretty sure that right there will make them understand the
gravity of your condition.
Yeah. What it means to have real IED, and when somebody pushes you too far, it takes every ounce of your being just to stop yourself from doing something horrible and stupid. And how people have a habit of pushing you to that point just to see if they can push you over the edge.
Poking the bear.
But that's something I discussed all the way back in episode 2 about those assholes and what they do. What they did to me, what they did to so many other people, and what led me into having to go to Desperation Station again. Now, I don't know what's going to lead each and every one of you there. Hopefully, none of you have to be there.
And if you do, tell us your experiences in the comments here on
YouTube.
YouTube.
Tell us your horror stories if you have any. Comment on the video. Email us at crossingthewaffles@gmail.com. Tell us your experiences, your horror stories with the system, trying to receive any type of aid, whether it be food stamps or unemployment or military benefits of any kind.
And if you don't have a horror story, tell us your success story.
Yeah, tell us how you managed to make it work in your area. Maybe it'll inspire somebody else to do the same and manage to get help for themselves. Because that's what this is truly about. We're all sitting here just before any of us can arrive at Desperation Station, because most of the offices are closed down right now. And we're talking about it so that the people that need to know before the office opens up again. Because I'm going to tell you now, the day those doors open up again everywhere, it's going to be busy. There's going to be a line. And it's not going to happen like that. So be prepared for it so that you aren't overrun by it. That being said, our meal is finalized, complete. We've given them something to consume and take home with them.
This has been Crossing Waffles.
Thank you for listening. And good luck crossing the spaces between.